Hey guys, this is going to be my full in-depth review on the VWTECH dash camera. So, according to the packaging, it says it's a full HD 1080p Sport DV camera. I think it's targeting both the GoPro kind of market plus the dash camera market, but I think lately more so the dash cam market, at least from what I've seen on Amazon. But either way, I'm going to talk about it just as a dash camera and not as an action camera for any sort of stuff like action sports. So if you didn't see my unboxing video, the main package comes with just a few different items. Obviously the most important ones, but it's going to have the camera itself, which is similar to the Mobius and the INOV C2 or C1 cameras. You can see here, it's got pretty much the same function buttons, power, mode, and the shutter button, memory card, reset, and then the 8-pin USB, which you do need a special cable for. So it's going to come with a shorter USB cable, and that is the cable that it uses, the 8-pin proprietary USB. It's actually the same pin or USB type that the INOV cameras use. It's going to come with a video out cable and also the bracket. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this bracket, but it is pretty secure. It feels a little harder to get in than the Mobius or the INOV, but once it's in there, that's not going anywhere. I know the Mobius camera and the INOV cameras could probably fly out of the bracket if you got rear-ended or in an accident pretty easily. More so the INOV, because that hardly actually holds it in compared to this. But it also makes it easier to take in and out, where this one is pretty hard to get in and out, but it's really not going to go anywhere. You'd have to actually hit it to get it out. But just like those other cameras, it's just a standard mount like this, so you can connect it to any typical mount like this suction cup mount. Suction that to your window, and then it's a quick $60 dash camera. So this does actually come with a battery and not a capacitor. And the unfortunate part is, if you do want the dash cam cable, that is separate. So the standard package does not come with that. So I like to install the small cameras like the Mobius and INOV and now the VWTECH on my rear view mirror. And this cable right here is not actually the cable that came with it. That is one that Rock from INOV sent me when I was testing the INOV C2. I am going to actually have more of his cameras or more of INOV cameras to test in the near future. But for now, it actually uses the same plug-in, so that way it doesn't stick out too much. I'm not sure if they're selling this cable yet. At the time, they weren't, but I think with enough support or enough people that wanted one, they would probably start selling them. Either way, the only issue I do have with this setup is I'm pretty sure with all three cameras it does get in the way of my mirror, so I don't have an automatic darkening mirror. Say someone's high beams are in your mirror, so I just have to live with not being able to turn down the high beams. The camera also comes with this burned CD. It actually is just a rewritable CD that they burn that comes with the instructions and the firmware on it. And to switch the camera from normal recording, or if you want it to be upside down, you actually have to get the firmware off of this. There isn't anything like a switch like on the INOV cameras, and there isn't any sort of option when you're customizing the firmware from the text file. And I am going to go over doing that because it is a little more work compared to the Mobius or the Inav.
So when you put the CD in, it'll have two different folders depending on how you want to record. Each one has a bin file, and you load the bin file onto the camera and reboot it, and that way you can either record in standard or upside down depending on how you want to install the camera in your window. Also included is instructions in English or Chinese. So the instructions are a basic PDF file. It'll tell you the basic functions of the camera and the different parts of the actual camera. You can see here it shows the different modes, such as the different recording resolutions and frame rates, and then the different buttons and inputs. It'll tell you how to charge, do basic things such as switching video modes, but it does get sort of convoluted. So here you can see the timestamp settings. You actually have to edit a video or a text file, and you have to use this special format and type it in and then upload it. And it's similar to some other cameras, but the way they do it is even harder just because you actually have to edit that file, then upload it, and your time is going to be whatever you typed in. So you got to upload it pretty quickly. Showed how to use it as a car camera. So at any point if you need to, you can pause this video if I'm not keeping up. It does show you how the looping recording works, the video out, and then the technical specs of this camera. The specs are actually pretty decent. A few years ago, there's no way a $60 camera would be this good. And here includes what's included in the standard package and the optional package. So VWTECH was kind enough to send me all of the optional stuff, and like I said before, the car cable is actually optional and you have to pay for that separate. So if you want to have a long enough cable to install in your car, you're going to have to buy that separate. So if you want to change the settings, this is the file that you actually have to edit, and this will be located on your memory card after you put it in the camera. So here you can see there's different settings like the still size, video clip size, record with audio, playback volume, and so on. And you have to type in the value you want, and then to the right of the semicolon it tells you what each value means. So this is where I was saying before, it's a little harder than other cameras, but I've programmed before, and this isn't anything too strange or unusual for me to have to deal with. But at the same time, for an average consumer, this probably will be a little bit of a learning curve for them. So I'm going to go ahead and show some footage again from the camera. Like in my unboxing video, I wasn't able to figure out how to cut down these video files. My video editing software, for some reason, can't cut these files down. If I try to trim any of them, the entire file just goes blank, and it seems to only allow me to put the entire 1-minute clip in at a time. But either way, I chose a couple different situations where there's different lighting conditions, and one example of where my memory card, I think, went corrupt. So I was never able to find out what the bit rate was comparable to cameras like the Mobius. This is recorded in AVI, and it said it was only 2 megabits per second, which doesn't seem to make sense because my rear cameras on my Blackview systems are just about that bit rate or a little bit higher, and they're way worse quality. Someone on Dashcam Talk was saying that Windows doesn't show the correct bitrate on AVI files, and I never got around to figuring out how to find out what it was compared to something like a .mov or MP4 file, but looking at this footage, it might not translate as well on YouTube, but I think the footage is actually very clear. License plates are readable where I would expect them to, and some users were claiming that this camera is not going to be as good as a Mobius in video quality, and I know it is a different video format, but it seems to be very comparable. I've been watching raw files from both, and it almost seems like the color doesn't seem as good on the VWTECH, or maybe it's just since I got this camera I moved and the vegetation seems a little different, so maybe I'm just seeing different colors from the change in scenery and the change in seasons. But one other thing I noticed is this camera seems to do a lot better at night than the G1W. Maybe it was just how I had the camera set up, but there seems to be a lot less bloom. So all these headlights and streetlights seem much more defined and easy to see compared to the G1W, where all the lights in the dark seem to just have so much bloom. Here's one of the harshest lighting clips I could find. So the sun is shining at me, plus my window is very, very dirty. At my new job, I am parked in a dirt parking lot and a lot of semi-trucks are going by, so it's kicking up a lot of dirt. And honestly, I just can't keep up washing my windows every single day just to get good footage on my cameras. But generally I do try when I am actively testing a new camera. But even here you can see that license plate. When I pause the screen on the raw video file, I can zoom in and actually get the license plate. So maybe in a high-speed crash you won't be able to read an accident or read a plate if they flee, but if there is a moment where a car is stopped in front of you, you are going to be able to read it. So the video quality to me is good enough. In this video, it seems like the lighting is a lot nicer, and this is probably the best looking video file I found, but everything to me is really clear. I think the biggest factor holding back dash cameras right now, besides frame rate, is still going to be the resolution. So you could have 20 megabits per second, but you probably aren't going to be able to read license plates unless you can actually read them with your own eyes and have good vision. So to me, this is acceptable, and comparing it to any higher bitrate camera or any more expensive camera isn't really necessarily useful. I think the fact of the matter is what you can expect from this camera is what you're getting. This is where I did have an issue with the camera. I, for whatever reason, was in Walmart and the camera stayed on. I don't know why. I turned the car off like usual and it stayed on and started recording, and I checked all my files before this and it started to have this crappy video quality, and I don't know what caused it. I tried to format the card with several different programs and windows and even different cameras, and I've come to the conclusion that my SanDisk memory card went bad. So at first I thought it was the camera, and after testing it with another memory card, a Kingston card, it seems to work fine. So again, time after time, I would recommend not using SanDisk memory cards because they seem to always cause issues for me. So Kingston and Transcend seem to be the better option. So one of the best things this camera has going for it is the cost, obviously. On Amazon, it's $59.99. And like I said before, that doesn't include the dash cam cable, which is a very important factor to me. But if you compare that to other cameras, like on Amazon, the G1W is a little bit more. If you want a screen, I would say the G1W actually is worth it. But I'm not always a fan of screens. I think they're not completely necessary. Here you can see the Mobius starts at around $90. And to me, I would say the Mobius is probably worth the extra cost, but I can't say everyone else wants to spend $90 to $100 on a camera, so that's up to you. The Inov also starts comparably priced to the Mobius at around $80. And again, it all comes down to, do you really want to pay $80 to $100, or do you want to save a few bucks here or there? So at first I thought there wasn't a black version until I looked on Amazon, and I wish I got the black version because that's always going to be more discreet in your car. But other than that, my biggest issue, or my few biggest issues with the camera, is the fact that a dash cam cable doesn't come with it, and the software support. I think if they really want this to be a competitor in the dash cam world, it needs to have the long cable included with every single camera. The other thing is customizing your firmware or settings it's just too inconvenient. I wouldn't say it's hard, but it is inconvenient. And if they want to be consumer friendly, they do need to step up and offer some sort of software to change or to customize their settings on the fly. The dashcam cable is $5.50 on Amazon, and that's US dollars. So it's not very expensive, but it does obviously add to the cost. So you can buy the black version with the cable for about $65, and if you have Amazon Prime, obviously it's free shipping. So would I recommend this camera? I would say if you really want to save money, sure, it's an adequate camera. The video quality is good enough to me. I think at this point we need to really jump towards 2K or even 4K video quality before we start advancing more. And at the point we are now, to me this camera is good enough. I wouldn't necessarily say get this over the Mobius or a more expensive camera like one of the Street Guardians or the Panorama. But at the same time, if you want an entry-level device, I think it's actually a good device. So some people might disagree with me because there's a lot of opinionated people, and it almost seems like there's starting to be fanboyism within the dashcam community. But if I want to be as unbiased as I can, I would say if you're thinking about buying this camera, I would say go for it. It gets the job done. So if you like this video or other videos, I would appreciate you hitting like and subscribe, and I should be having my Street Guardian review up next and a couple other cameras coming soon, so I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.